Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss in detail the editorial that got published on the 21st of April, and it is regarding the India's LPG crisis, right? So given the lot of data that are there, and not all of data is relevant for the exam, so we'll start with the minimal data and understand the situation, how it is affecting India, right? So starting with the very basic data, that India's domestic production is just 40% of the demand, right? So suppose we are requiring 100 ton of uh, LPG, we are just producing 40% of demand, and the 60% of it is imported, right? So this is the first data that can be used in an introduction for any GS answer, right? Then coming to the second thing that can be deduced from this editorial is that the commercial usage is just 10% of the total LPG that is India consuming, right? So the 90% of the consumption is going in the kitchen. So this is the second insight that can be derived from this editorial, right? That over 90% of the LPG that India is consuming is going towards our kitchen, right? So this is the second insight. The third and the most important insight is that the 90% of the import that is coming to India is coming from the Strait of Hormuz, which is currently under attack in the US and Iran war. So these three main insights on can be derived from the present editorial, right? So the first problem that we have seen that can be used as an introduction is that we lack in production. We just produce 40% of our total demand. More than 90% of the India's LPG requirements are going towards kitchen, and 90% of our imports are coming or passing through the Strait of Hormuz, right? So comparing with our Asian neighbors like Japan and China, they are also importing LPG, and in fact they are importing more quantity of LPG than India is importing, right? So then again, there is no such crisis in Japan or China. Like they are affected, they are certainly affected, but then again they are not affected on that level like India is affected, right? So we have seen images of migrant workers returning from Delhi and Gujarat back to their home, and we have also seen very recently the workers strike that happened in Manesar, right? And also in the Noida. So it was all the spillover effect over the rising living cost that the workers were facing. So that result that resulted again due to the rising LPG cost, right? So Japan and China are not that much affected as India is affected. So coming back to like what Japan is doing differently that India is not doing, right? So only 40% of the LPG demand is going to kitchen for Japan, right? The rest is met through electricity or other sources like PNG, right? So this is how Japan is dealing with the situation, while India's demand, if you recall from the initial analysis, the first point that we mentioned, we use 90% of our LPG for domestic purpose, and at the same time Japan is using just 40% of their LPG consumption, right? So this is the one major difference, that how Japan is handling the situation differently from India. Coming to the second way, uh, like Japan has a buffer stock of 108 days, that is 108 days they can survive if the LPG supply stops tomorrow. So they have this much huge reserves already in their country. Coming back to India, we have just 1.5 days, right? 1.5 days of reserve, so will not be able to even eat food for more than 2 days if supply has to stop tomorrow. So this is the second big reason how Japan has tackled this situation. Similarly, China has also tackled the similar situation by having bigger buffer stocks and diversifying the fuel for the kitchen use, right? So coming to the solution, what India can do to tackle this situation, like other countries are tackling, right? So first is diversify kitchen fuel, right? You can use electric cooking in urban areas where the electricity is in consistent supply, and where there is proper network of electricity, we can use electricity for the cooking purpose. Then again, government is also pushing for the PNG usage, where there is the connection, and around only 1.5% of the current consumer base is using PNG. So these two things are very much required to tackle this problem. Then again, we need to diversify our import, right? So like we mentioned initially, that 90% of our imports are passing through Strait of Hormuz, right? So we need to diversify the countries from where we can import, so that even if one of the sources get blocked, our supply remains and our demand are addressed, right? So we can use our traditional partner like Russia or other countries from where we can secure supplies. So the second solution that is for the government to look for is diversifying our import sources. Then again, the last solution is like increasing the buffer stock. Like we mentioned in the discussion, that India has just the buffer stock of 1.5 days, while Japan has the buffer stock of 108 days. So we can gradually and slowly increase the buffer stock to 14 or 21 days, and that can means take care of the any uncertainty that can that may arise in the future. So these 3 points can be used for addressing the present scenario or any unforeseen circumstances that may arise in future. So this was all about the analysis of the editorial that came on the 21st of April, and the exact paper that can be mapped is GS3 of UPSC, and the exact topic if you wish to map is the energy security, right? So coming to the two important prelims questions that can be asked from day's newspaper is, the first is Suwari festival, right? So we'll be discussing in brief about what Suwari festival or where it is celebrated and why it is in news, right? So Suwari festival is celebrated in Assam, particularly in Boko area, and it is celebrated on the seventh day of Bihu, right? So the other things that are associated with Suwari festival is Hana Ghora, which is a bamboo horse dance. So these are the traditional dances that are associated with this Suwari festival. So UPSC has this habit of explicitly asking things particularly related with Northeast. In the recent or in the previous exams also, it has asked about many things like the natural landscape, maybe it could be lakes, it could be like natural parks, it could be like anything which is related to Northeast and which is in the news. So UPSC has this habit of asking things from Northeast. So you need to keep this in mind, that Suwari festival is celebrated in Assam on the occasion of Bihu, on the seventh day of Bihu. So this was all about this, and we also know that there is a Hornbill festival. If you remember, it is quite famous festival which is celebrated in Nagaland. So the way in UPSC can ask this question particularly is that on one side it can give the various festivals that are celebrated in Northeast or maybe other parts of India, and on the other hand it can give the states on where they are celebrated, and you would be supposed to match like how many pairs of the state and festivals are correctly matched. So in this way you need to keep just in mind that this festival is there, it is celebrated in Assam, so that this will help you in at least eliminating the options, right? So coming to the next important topic that was there in the today's newspaper about from the prelims point of perspective is index of 8 core industries, right? So recently in March, index of 8 core industry got down by 0.4%. So this is not of much importance, right? Like on which month it came up, on which month it came down. But what is important is the what 8 core industries are included in this index and which ministry releases this particular index, right? Then again, UPSC has this habit of asking the ministries associated with schemes, and it can like give up the very confusing options as a very confusing ministries option. Like, so suppose it gives the option of Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and Ministry of Heavy Industries, right? So all these are quite close options, and while in exam hall you might feel confused about whether it is Ministry of Heavy Industries which releases these 8 core industries, because then again the core word is 8 core industries and the option is having Ministry of Heavy Industries, or maybe Ministry of Finance could be the right answer, or could be the Ministry of Commerce and Industry could be the answer, right? So the right answer, that the index of 8 core industry is released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, right? So this is the first thing that you need to keep in mind. And the other thing that needs to be keep in mind is what are 8 industries that make up these 8 core industries, right? So starting with coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizers, steel, cement, and electricity, right? So these 8 industries form the part of 8 core industries. Then again, in what way UPSC can ask question from these things? Like UPSC can give 3 options from these particular industries, 8 core industries, and the fourth option could be uh, industry from which is not a part of 8 core industries, like suppose telecommunication or mining. So UPSC would be asking about how many of the options above are the part of 8 core industries, right? So you need not need to cram all these industries, you just need to go through for 3 or 4 times through these industries as they keep repeating in the news over time. So you'll gradually be keeping having some idea, okay, this is the industry that keeps occurring and it is the part of 8 core industries. So we'll gradually be able to eliminate, right? So while again and again reading, while again it is passing through your eyes, so you'll be able to gradually eliminate the options and you'll be able to mark the right answers, right? So this was all about the analysis of the today's editorial and the important topics that were important regarding the prelims examination, right? So thank you.